Welcome to the Better Business, Better Life podcast. Terry DuPont is the founder of DuPont Advisory Group, a group dedicated to providing comprehensive services to successful business owners, medical, and other professionals. Terry has top-of-the-table status in the prestigious International $1 Million Roundtable, placing him among the top 0.1% of all professional financial advisors in the world. Terry's philosophy is, I've learned that I grow and prosper more by focusing on the success of others, rather than fretting over my own. Terry is a certified financial professional with the Institute of Financial Wellness, an advisor for the Power of Zero Taxes in Retirement, chartered retirement plans specialist, certified wealth preservation planner, and certified philanthropic developer. On the podcast, Terry brings together experts in their field who have succeeded in building their business to share their secrets with you. And now, here's your host, Terry DuPont.
Welcome, ladies and gentlemen. Glad you're back. We got the regular audience for most of you, and any newcomers, great to see you. Great to have you. I'm Terry DuPont, your host of Better Business, Better Life, Building on Your Success. And today, I'm honored to have Aaron Krafft, who's a CPA in Fort Wayne, Indiana. He is the founder and owner of Luminary CPAs. And so, Aaron, welcome to have you. Great to see you. Welcome.
Thanks, Terry. Appreciate the introduction. Really excited for our conversation today.
Okay, great. Aaron, just to get started, can you tell me a little bit about you and why you started your career?
Yeah, so I kicked off my career in accounting. That's my background. That's my degree. Got a degree in accounting at Purdue University, and immediately after college, I got my CPA, sat for my CPA exam, and went through that process. And I kicked off my career in Big Four accounting at a public accounting firm, Ernst & Young. And I was there for a couple of years. And for any of you who don't know much about public accounting, it's a pretty brutal introduction to your career. It's not your, cushy 40-hour week, 9 to 5, hour-long lunch. It is, it's challenging. It's difficult. You're really thrown right into it, thrown to the wolves immediately. And that's the whole idea. Like, you know what to expect. You know it's going to be this challenge when you go into it. So I went into it fully knowing what it was going to be. And that was the intention. The intention was to gain a bunch of experience in different industries right off the bat. I think that's why a lot of people take this route. You really see everything you're working. So I was specifically in audit and working in Indianapolis, and you're put on multiple different engagements, working in multiple different industries. So I was able to work within in the real estate industry, pharmaceutical, manufacturing, and it's, these businesses operate in very different ways, from like largest pharmaceutical company in the world to a very small manufacturing company in the middle of nowhere. So like you see a very broad spectrum of companies, and you get a lot of experience very quickly. So that's where I started. And the intentions weren't to, go all in there, take the partner route, which some people do that. But for me, it was more so getting that exposure, which I got. And it was a great experience. It was very challenging, but looking back, I wouldn't change it for the world. Mm-hmm. So after being there for a couple of years, that's when I started to evaluate, okay, what do I really want to do? What do I want my career to be? And what I found the most interest in at the time was the health field, the medical field, that type of work, working for the pharmaceutical company and having family who was heavily involved in the medical field. I always had an interest in that. I always knew the lingo and knew what people were talking about, and I was interested in how the process worked on the financial side. So that's the route I took. I got a financial analysis role in India at a large hospital there, and spent over 3 years working there. And then, in the back of my head, this whole time as I guess I originally never thought of myself as, an entrepreneur. That's probably I think it's the label for it. I never considered myself an entrepreneur, but, sitting through these two careers, these two jobs, in the back of my head, I always I didn't feel content with what I was doing. I didn't feel at home, or I had a hard time finding purpose in my work, I guess is a better way to explain it. I really wanted to do something more, something that I was passionate about, something that I could have more control over. When you are in these larger organizations, I have this, fix it mindset where if I see something that doesn't look right or can be improved upon, I always want to provide some suggestions on how to make it better. I just continuous improvement is kind of how my brain works, for better or for worse. And it's hard to do that in a large organization. No matter where you are on the totem pole, it's hard to make any changes. It's very slow to change. Mm-hmm. So that is when I started to have the idea of, I think taking the route of a business owner, and doing my own thing sounds really appealing. It's what my father did and does, and it's something I, considered doing at that time. And a door opened 3 years into that job, which aligned perfectly with my career as a CPA to be this tax firm. It was a small side tax practice starting out, and it was a family friend who we knew who started this firm originally. And it turned into something bigger than he could take on with his current job. So I stepped in to manage the firm and eventually become the owner of the firm and take it from there. So that's kind of a long-winded answer as to where things started and how I got to owning and managing Luminary CPA.
Excellent. Well, it sounds like you've had a lot of things come at you over time. What would you say your biggest challenge is that you faced?
Yeah, that is, I think quite a few, I'd say. I think one of them specifically in the past couple of years being a business owner now, I think one challenge that entrepreneurs and business owners constantly face is whether to bring on or say no to new ventures. There's endless opportunities to do new things, whether that's like a new service line, a new marketing campaign, and changing your website, changing your messaging. There's a million different paths you can take with your business. And as a business owner, you're never content with where things are. You always want it to be better. And learning to say no to things, I think, is the hardest thing. You're always going to be given opportunities. You're always going to have things that you can do differently, and learning to say no and learning which ones to ride out. I think that's the biggest challenge and the biggest thing I've really learned over the years, just the power of that, and sticking to what what you're good at, what you want your vision to be, and not letting these outside sources affect what you want the outcome to eventually be.
Over 47 years, I've felt your pain many times.
Yeah, I believe it. I'm sure there's more to come with that.
Not that that's my age. That's how long I'm doing. So
yes. Yeah. I'm sure you can attest to it.
And would you say that most of your clients are business owners or individuals, families?
Yeah, we work primarily with business owners. It started out geared towards individuals, and something I'm passionate about is working with business owners, working with, in my auditing days, working with these smaller businesses, like seeing where they started and what they turned into, and then just personally interacting with small business owners throughout my life. I really, like being around those people and seeing somebody with a small idea turn into something good and helping them along the way. And finances in general, but taxes specifically are those people's biggest headache. When you're running a business, the last thing you have time to worry about is all the other things that don't have to do with your business. Like, you're focused on your business, growing it. Ideally, you can just, the financing, set that aside, the taxes, set that aside, and not have to stress about that too. It's just another stressor. So being able to take that off of their plate and optimize their taxes is something that I really appreciate and enjoy working with those types of people.
Do you think, or would you say that your beginnings at Ernst & Young was what allowed you to become an expert with business owners, or at least a beginning of that?
Yeah, no question. When you're there, you're interacting with people at all levels. So you're, like I said, you're kind of thrown to the wolves. So even there, my first year, I was working with a big real estate company down in Indianapolis. Like, you're put in front of the CFO, and I'm like, as a year one coming out of college, I'm there presenting something to the CFO, and it's like, you need to be able to articulate well. You need to be able to communicate these ideas, complex ideas, in a way that are simple. Not that they can't understand it at that level, but it's things that we see on our end that we want to consolidate into a concise idea and deliver it to them. And that's what really taxes are all about. Taxes are complex. They're constantly changing. And people who aren't in the field, it's very hard to distill what is right, what is wrong, especially with the social media. There's so much mixed information out there.
Mm-hmm.
So taking these concepts that are complex and distilling them into something simple and delivering it to the business owner, definitely a skill that I developed and was able to fine tune during my time in public accounting.
Okay, great. How long have you had your own practice now?
I've been the owner for a year at this point now.
But you were working with when did you start at that practice? I guess I should say.
It was about a year and a half. I worked for about 6 months, not full time, more so on the side. And then at that point became the manager and partner by buying into the firm.
Okay. What is something you know now that you wish you knew when you first started?
Yeah, that's an excellent question. I think, this job, dealing with people day in and day out, just knowing how much of it is relational. Like, yes, when you think of a CPA, you don't necessarily think of a relational type person, which is a big issue with the industry. They for the most part, mainly true. CPAs aren't necessarily the type to be known as a relational person, but that's really what it comes down to. That's a huge part of the business of feeling their pain points. Like, no one wants to have a $10,000 tax bill. So feeling their pain points, being able to empathize with them is really a huge part of it. It's not just learning the tax code and applying the tax code. That's one part of it, but being able to empathize with these, especially with the business owners, when that's their livelihood, it has such a significant impact on their life, and being able to be at their side and help walk them through these challenging situations it's huge. And I think, I was able to learn that quickly, but I wish, kind of going into it, I knew that right off the bat, that, it's more than just numbers. You're dealing with unique individuals, and getting to know them at a personal level right off the bat is a huge game changer and a huge part of the job.
Excellent. Is there something that you share by chance with each and every client that you have? Something you feel they all need to know?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I think the one thing for clients, specifically business owners, is starting with the end in mind. It's easy to have this business and just take it day by day and not really know where it's going. And I think that's very common for business owners. Like, there's so much on their plate, they're just taking it day by day. But if you don't look at where you want this to be in 5, 10, 20 years, it's hard to know, like, are you taking the right steps today to be where you want to be? Like, are you looking to sell this firm in 5 years? Are you looking to sell it in 20 years? Are you looking to hand it over to your kids in 10, 20 years? There's huge tax implications and financial implications in all of that. So, and just personal, the desire to grow it as well. I mean, implications of all kind when you know what you're going to do with it. So I think that's one thing I like to do with my initial call with clients is, where do you see this going? Where did it start, and where do you want it to be in 5, 10 years? And a lot of people have never thought of it, which is it's surprising, but at the same time I get it, because I was kind of in the same spot too. Like, I immediately didn't think about where I wanted this to be.
It's hard to times when you got that grind going every day, right?
Exactly. You just get in this mindset of the grind, and it's like, when are you going to stop, or when are you going to feel content? Like, you have to have goals and establish what you want the outcome to be. I think it makes your job a lot more enjoyable, I think if you're stuck in that grind, you can burn out easily. But when you have a goal in mind of what you want it to become, I think it does make the work more enjoyable. And I think that's a big part of it for sure.
Yeah. Yeah. Could you provide an example of a successful strategy that you've implemented for a client that had a significant impact on their financial position?
Yeah. So the one that's the most common, usually where we start with business owners, is looking at their entity structure. What type of business they are. Are they just like a sole proprietorship, a partnership, an S corporation, C corporation? There's a lot of different strategies on which one you want to do and what you're doing, how many partners you have, how big your company is. So depending on your unique scenario, whichever one you're in is going to have a big implication on your taxes. So that's kind of step one, is figuring out, okay, how many owners are there? What's your revenue? And taking it from there. So most often we do see people who, some people don't even have an LLC established. They're just Schedule C filing as a disregarded entity. And that's great for people starting out. But once you start making 100, 200, 300,000, it's time to formalize things a little bit more. So most recently, that's kind of a situation we went through, making substantial money for a sole proprietorship. So switching that into creating an LLC and having them be taxed as an S corporation, getting them on payroll at a reasonable compensation, and saving significant portions of self-employment taxes each and every year. That's what's I love about that strategy of becoming an S corporation. Like those savings aren't just like a one-time savings. Like that's some tax strategies have just a one-time savings. This is recurring. Every year you're going to save those dollars in self-employment tax, and it can really add up quickly. Now, there are some people who hear about it on social media and say, "Oh, I want to be an S corp." Like, and then I see what they're earning, and it's like, well, it may not make sense for you right now, because there are added costs to be an S corporation. You're going to have to run payroll. You're going to have an additional tax return. The bookkeeping is a little bit more complex because you have equity involved now. Especially if you have partners, you have equity transactions going on. So you'd want to hire a reliable bookkeeper. So there are added costs to it. And that's something we run the analysis to make sure, do the tax savings offset all your added costs? And when they do, that's usually the time it makes sense to switch over.
Do you and your team, your partners, when it comes to as working together as a team, can you share some key principles or philosophies that might guide your approach to handling clients' taxes and financial books at the highest standard?
Mm-hmm. Yeah. So one of our, people throw around core values all the time. When you hear big corporations having their core values, but then like you don't see them lived out. And I think that's a frustration for a lot of people. So, we've established core values, and we wanted to be things that we truly live out and think about on a daily basis. So the number one we have is extreme ownership. And it comes from, I don't know if you know who Jocko Willink is. He's a U.S. Navy SEAL who, he's written a few books now, but he coined this topic, or this phrase, extreme ownership, meaning in any situation, if something goes wrong, like especially as the owner of the firm, like you're fully responsible. If something, if an employee messed up somewhere and it affects the client, like that, don't hold the employee responsible, like the owner. Like I'm responsible ultimately if something goes wrong. And I think that's huge in this situation with taxes and advisory. Like sometimes you don't get it all right. Like, yes, you provide your best scenario with the facts are given, but there are times where, you provide a scenario, you give them two options, and like you want the client to decide, and maybe they pick the one that was less beneficial for them, and they blame you for it. Yeah. It's like, okay, like I'll take responsibility for that. I should have pushed you in one direction over the other. And, so just at whatever cost, being responsible, taking responsibility for things that go bad or good, if it goes in that direction. And that really helps especially within a company when you have multiple employees and multiple owners. you're not pointing fingers, you're not pointing the blame. You expect people to, when something is their fault, to step up and take responsibility for it. So that avoids a lot of stress within the company, internally and externally. Like we'll admit if we do something wrong. Like we'll admit to clients, like, yeah, we messed up here, and we'll remediate as best we can, instead of dancing around it, trying to cover it up, just owning it. So extreme ownership is a huge one, and definitely has made a big impact on how we operate.
It alleviates a lot of stress too, doesn't it?
Yes, it does. I think at first it's a little intimidating, obviously, because nobody likes to admit they're wrong or admit something is their fault. So yeah, at first I'd say it's more stressful, but yes, over time, once you get used to it, it starts to definitely alleviate that stress.
Excellent. Yeah. Aaron, can you describe a particularly challenging client scenario that you may have encountered in the past, and how you and your team successfully navigated it to achieve the desired outcome?
Mm-hmm. There's a couple that come to mind, so I'm trying to
That's
decide
okay.
what.
We can edit out, so
Okay.
about the delay. So
Yeah.
and if not, that's okay too.
Yeah. So one scenario that comes to mind this past year is a client who came to us who was involved in real estate, which is not uncommon for the type of people we work with. Multiple real estate properties and transactions from the prior year that did not go so well. Well, I should say they didn't go so well then. They were reported incorrectly in the previous year, and they came to us to appropriately fix it.
Mm-hmm.
And that was something that we had a contractor, and let me trying to think of a better way to phrase this. Yeah, we had a part intern. I don't know why that was one that come to mind. So we had an intern help us with kind of navigate us through this tax situation and take a first pass on it. And he ended up recommending something back to the client that was not quite correctly, and it caused a little bit of strife with the client. So this is where extreme ownership comes into play. Is ultimately I was responsible for the things that this intern had mentioned to the client that wasn't quite correct. So that was something that I had a discussion, and we were able to resolve it internally just fine. And externally, I think standing and taking that ownership and addressing that it was something that we could have done better is, I think that was a lot of internal strife there that could have gone very poorly, that we were able to manage well. But from the client's perspective, it was it was a difficult situation at first. But I think all in all, having those core values of extreme ownership really helped us alleviate a lot of things that could have gone worse there.
Yeah, excellent. How do you measure the success of your services for your clients? And we can skip that one if you want. It's okay. I've got plenty more.
Yeah. I don't think I have a great answer for that one. So we'll go ahead and do a pass on that one.
Okay. All right, good. Well, how do you personally define success for yourself?
That's a great question. So for me, I think success can definitely be defined differently in every scenario. And the one off the top of your head comes to wealth, like, how much wealth you've amassed, or what's your status in your job. I think that's how I think most of us kind of view success at the surface level. How much money do you make? Where are you living? What's your job status? What's your family situation? Those external factors. I think for me, it's getting to the end of my life and not necessarily having wealth, having status. It's knowing that I didn't leave anything on the table within each area of my life. So I have, for me, 4 important things in my life is faith, family, health, and my career. Those are kind of four, I guess, pillars, if you will, in my life. And of course, there are benchmarks I want to achieve in each of those areas, but the goals I've set for each of those are goals I know I can attain. They're not things that, outside factors can't affect. So, with my career, for example, my goal is not to be making, 15-20 million dollars a year. That's something I can't necessarily control. I can do habits to get there, but in the end, I don't have control over that. So what I do have a control over, though, is being the best business owner I can possibly be to my clients and to my employees. And I have different metrics I have set for that, but that's a metric I can control, and I know can check at the end of the day, did I do this or not? So within those four pillars, I actually have like a spreadsheet. This is kind of my CPA brain coming in. I have a spreadsheet with these four pillars, and I have goals within each of those pillars of things I want, like habits I want to do every single day. So they start out with like 20-year goals and then 10-year goals, and I've broken them down into daily habits to ultimately achieve those goals. And I know if I'm just doing these habits every single day, that, at the end of my life, I'll feel okay, that I have succeeded. Like maybe I didn't hit this certain benchmark of wealth. Maybe I didn't hit this benchmark of status or have this many followers or whatever metric that we often look at. But I know if I'm doing those things every single day and I'm laying on my deathbed, whether that's in 5 days or 50 years, I can look back and know, okay, I did everything I intended to do. I feel content. I feel I achieved success. So I think that's what it is to me, is just knowing I didn't leave anything on the table.
Kudos. Yeah, I like that. Is there anything that you would like to discuss that I haven't brought up?
Let me think. I mean, I don't know on my end if there is. I don't know. I don't know if these conversations, if there's frequently back and forth about getting into your side of things at all, or how does that, like,
This is all
asking
about
you
you.
questions? Okay.
It's all about you.
Okay.
Yeah.
I mean, I think one thing that we maybe can touch on is how we really differentiate ourselves is kind of how we operate the firm, and kind of the reason I decided to start, I guess, the CPA firm in the first place. Like, and we trying to think of like what the question would be. Just like, I guess, how the differentiation between our CPA firm and other CPA. That's, I think, something that is very unique in our scenario compared to others. So maybe that's something we could touch on.
Sure, I'd love to hear about it.
Yeah, so I think one thing that, oopsies, hopefully it didn't
You're okay.
too loud in your microphone. I think one thing that we like to do differently with our CPA firm, and I had alluded to this earlier, complaints about previous CPAs. A lot of times CPAs aren't known to be very proactive. They aren't known to be very relational. And that's one, I think, downfall of the industry. And one thing we try to eliminate that by being very intentional, being very proactive, and being hands-on with clients. So one thing we've kind of developed is we do most of our stuff virtually, which not everybody likes, but it actually does provide us the opportunity to be more hands-on and be more engaging and interactive. So we actually do everything. We have like a client portal that we do everything through, and we are able to have monthly or quarterly touch points with all of our clients. And that's something that they have, really appreciated, especially with the tax preparation side, rather than just them handing in their physical documents and getting their refund or their payment check at the end of the year. They upload their documents. We'll prepare the return, send them updates along the way, and then we sit down on a video call with them at the end. We walk them through the tax return, show them everything that we took advantage of, all the tax credits that they took advantage of, and things that they couldn't do, and explain really the why behind it. Most people don't get that insight from who does their taxes. And I think everybody has to pay taxes, and I think you should understand what you're doing, what you're paying. So that's something we try to be intentional about, is sitting down, walking them through, and just make sure they're crystal clear on what they're paying, on make sure they don't have any questions, and just fully understanding the situation. And especially on the tax advisory side, when we are explaining these complex topics, we want them to understand it fully, and not just to take our word for it, but really be able to understand the process and the why behind what we're recommending. So I think that's something that a lot of other practices frankly don't have the time for. I think that's something we've seen people, it's such a, CPAs are more of a, there's a lot less now than there were before. It's kind of a big exit and a big departure in the industry right now. A lot of CPAs are retiring right now, and a lot of new people are wanting to enter the field. You have to essentially do 5 years of college, and then you have to take this very challenging exam. So very few people are wanting to enter the world of becoming a CPA, and a lot are exiting. So there is a big shortage, meaning that CPA firms are extremely busy. They don't have much time to work with clients. So they kind of just crank them through the door, in and out as quick as possible, and don't spend much time with them. And there's been a lot of frustrations with that.
Yeah, I in my all my years in my business, I've noticed that number one, my business as well as yours over time has started to become more and more commoditized. Okay.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
You know what I mean? And I mean, a lot of people can just go buy a little software package each year and do their taxes. Okay.
Right.
So it's becoming more commoditized, but in that same vein, it causes, it's almost good that maybe that's a benefit to someone like yourself who's young, who works with business owners and adds a lot of value. And you're working with them almost, basically all year long. So when it comes down to tax time, it's pretty easy, isn't it?
Exactly.
A lot more simple, I would think. Yeah.
No, that's a great, it definitely, tax preparation has turned into a commodity. I mean, there's these huge firms like, H&R Block or TurboTax, where whether the taxpayer is doing the tax prep themselves or somebody else is doing it for like, $200-$300. Yeah, that's a commodity. And that's where the tax advisory comes into play, where it is much more hands-on, where we're deeply involved into your financial situation and taking advantage of things that these other big box tax preparation practices, like, so they simply can't do. They're trying to get people in and out the door as quickly as possible, so they don't have time to get to know your unique situation. So when you do and you come to tax time, it's super easy. You already know everything. You already have most of the documents. So doing the tax preparation at that point, it definitely comes a lot easier at that point.
As a young man, I mean, you've had your levels of success already, but as a young man, what's been your biggest challenge?
Yeah, I think I kind of mentioned this a little bit earlier, but deciding what things to go all in on, what things to turn your attention to. I think early on, especially as you're starting the business, you do have to wear so many different hats. You're wearing the marketing hat, the finance hat, operations, client service. There's so many different hats you can use, and it can be hard to know where to spend your time. So that's something early on that we really had to be intentional with, is deciding where are our efforts best spent, and at what point do you hire somebody to do something, or like at what point do you pay someone to help with your marketing, or pay someone to help with your bookkeeping. So there's a million different decisions you have to make on a daily basis. So learning to make the big decisions, really, I guess all decisions, learning to make decisions quickly, I think is a big thing that has been helpful for me. I think I used to sit on these decisions for days and days and weigh all the pros and cons. And that's definitely important in some scenarios. But when you're running and managing a businesses and you're wearing that many hats, there are so many decisions you need to make on a daily basis. So understanding which ones are important, what are identifying the big decisions from the small decisions, and for those small decisions, make those quick. I think you can waste a lot of time sitting on those small things when in the grand scheme of things, they're not going to make a big impact. And then, identifying those bigger decisions and spending more efforts there as opposed to the small things. So I think that's something that I really struggle with the first 6 months or so. A lot of time was spent on those smaller things that I didn't realize. I think that's something I've identified now, and I'm much better at knowing which is which and learning to where to best spend my efforts.
Okay, excellent. And you've already mentioned, what sets your team, your CPA team, apart from other firms in the industry. But winding down here, could you tell me, again, or maybe add some additional comments on who is your perfect client?
Yeah, that's a great question. So I think a lot of people, I don't want to sound like, I don't know if prideful is the right word, but people like working with people who are similar to themselves. Like you have things you can relate to. I think that getting back to the relational and the personal side, when you're working with somebody who is in the same walk of life as you, it's easy to engage with them and interact with them. So people who are in their 30s and 40s who have a young family, who are business owners, people in that realm, those are people I can relate to. I can feel the pain. They have kids and are trying to manage business at the same time. It's hard. It's very challenging. I'm going through that right now. So somebody else is going through that. It's easy to empathize with them. So I'd say people in their millennials, I'd say would be, that age range, who are business owners, who have family, who value family and value personal wellness, personal development. And, they care to grow their business, but they also mostly care about personal development, their family, their wife, their kids, and being able, it makes that relational side so much easier to connect with. So I think that would be that would fall along the spectrum of a perfect client.
Yeah, excellent. We're not done here, I guess, and I know your contact information is at the bottom of the screen, but would you mind telling our audience where they can go to learn more about you?
Yeah, so I spend in terms of social media, I am on actively on LinkedIn, Aaron Krafft CPA, and I am on Instagram. The tag there is Profit with Aaron. And that's our website, luminarycpa.com, is also another great place to get our phone number and our email. So any of those sources would be a great place to follow along.
Excellent. Well, Aaron, I've really enjoyed having you on the show today. I love doing these, especially with younger entrepreneurs, because it gives a fresh insight to the stuff I've been doing, for some 47 years, and I hope it does the same for our listeners. So, everybody, we're glad to have Aaron with us today. I'm your host, Terry DuPont. Better business, better life, building on your success. And remember, it wasn't raining when Noah built the ark. So thanks for joining this week, and check us next week. Thank you.
This has been the Better Business, Better Life, Building on Your Success podcast. If you have questions about creating tax-free wealth and income, forward-looking tax mitigation, strategic risk mitigation, wealth preservation and legacy planning, and advanced financial management, go to DuPontAdvisory.com or email Terry@DuPontAdvisory.com.
49 faces looked to him in triumph. Over the last 12 months, they had each taken turns and promoted his business for a week at a time, driving over $987,342 in revenue. What if you had a network of 50 centers of influence who promoted your business every week for a year? Grab your copy of the #1 Amazon best-selling book, The Ultimate Guide to Growing Your Business with a Podcast, at 33% off the Amazon price by going to ultimatepodcastbook.com. Again, that website for 33% off the Amazon price is ultimatepodcastbook.com.